It's podcast number 32 at joettecalabrese.com, and today we've got a new episode for the Moms with Moxie miniseries.
All the way from my desk in New York, I get to see how homeopathy is transforming lives all over the globe. And some of my students have really caught my eye. Some of you have done all you can to learn how to cure those around you using homeopathic medicines. Your successes inspire me, and they're glorious and powerful. And I can't keep your successes a secret any longer. So, with my help from my roving reporter, Paola, we bring you this mini podcast series that I call Moms with Moxie. It's actually grandmoms too, but it's Moms with Moxie. See how regular mothers and others, average people who want to cure those around them, have gone from freaking to fabulous with homeopathy.
I'm very much looking forward to who I'm interviewing today. I have Cheryl Shenefeld with me, and she's an interesting gal. She has been in the holistic alternative health world for quite a while now. I think you were saying, Cheryl, since before you had your own kids, which is like every girl's dream, I feel like. Well, every seasoned mom's dream. I mean, I wish I was down that road before I had kids too, so you're awesome.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're welcome. So tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you're a mom of two.
Yes, I have two kids. My daughter's 15 and my son is 11. And I'm also an author and a nutritionist. So I've been working in the nutrition world really since when I was pregnant with my daughter. And I've also written 5 nutrition books with a holistic medical doctor, Dr. David Brownstein, mostly on nutrition. And we teamed up because I was really into eating real food, more of a holistic lifestyle. I had been studying a lot with the Weston A. Price Foundation. And so we just saw eye to eye as far as how real food could really help people heal along with his holistic treatment.
Now, I know Joette is on the board. She's an honorary board member of the Weston A. Price Foundation, but you were telling me that you were involved in one of the first chapters of the Weston A. Price Foundation?
Yes, actually the first chapter was here in Detroit, Michigan. They had only been around for a couple years, and I found them, and I actually ended up being on the board of the local chapter and getting really involved and helping people to find local farmers and get connected with food. And it really just kind of fit right into my practice as a nutritionist. And now I also use homeopathy. And so that was kind of the basis of what I do. Even now, I did a lot more then.
That's awesome. Yeah, we're going to get into that and how you combine nutrition with homeopathy. But let's start at the beginning of your journey with homeopathy. I know that you've told me you would much rather have homeopathy in your life than not. Tell me about kind of your early experiences with homeopathy and what situations you used it for.
I connected with a homeopath while I was pregnant, actually. And she taught me a little bit about homeopathy, and I was already on the page that I wanted to have a natural childbirth, but she said that I could do it without any pain meds if I just used homeopathy. And so I ended up using just Arnica throughout my whole birth process, and it worked. It was amazing, and I can't say I was pain-free, but I definitely didn't use any of the pain meds or do epidural or anything like that. So I was very happy to have my daughter naturally the way I had planned.
Oh, that's awesome. Good old Arnica to the rescue.
I know. And Arnica is like my favorite remedy ever. And I use it a lot with my kids, for myself, and just for pain or injuries. And so I love it. It's my go-to.
I know, I always tell people, like, what do you do if you know someone who's skeptical with homeopathy? I'm like, just wait for them to have an accident and use Arnica, then it's going to be fine. Then
they'll know.
Yeah, then they'll know. Arnica, yes, exactly. I mean, if homeopathy were a high school and all the remedies were people, Arnica would be, class president. Very popular, very successful, easy to use. So that's awesome. Sure. So you started working with a homeopath. Did you just pretty much go to your homeopathy appointment anytime you got sick, or did you ever start kind of trying to transition into using it yourself without the assistance?
I did. I really was drawn to homeopathy and its powers gave me a lot of incentive to find out more about it. And then having my children, really, I wanted to raise them drug-free. So I wanted to know what options were out there. So I really started studying homeopathy more. I did see a classical homeopath who kind of directed us in that route. But like acute situations and things like that, I started to learn on my own so that I could, if say my daughter or son had like a cough or sniffles or something, that I could just go to my resources and my homeopathy kit and pick something to use rather than medication.
Right. And I think that's pretty standard. Joette has said that among classical homeopaths, they do encourage moms to learn homeopathy for acute prescription of their own families and themselves. That's good. So you started dabbling into that. Have you ever had to give, like, say, antibiotics to your kids?
Actually, one time, and I still kind of kicking myself for doing that because
Sure.
I know now, obviously I didn't know then, so I have to kind of give myself a break that I didn't know then, and it was the best choice at the time. So definitely I've been working on using probiotics and rebuilding, and now just learning more about homeopathy, I can use that as my medicine.
So what was it for, that antibiotic?
For strep throat. So he got too far along on the strep throat that I just didn't know enough about the homeopathy that it was going to take care of it. So
Right, yeah. You are not allowed to mom guilt yourself for doing that, because I did not have any natural childbirth. My two oldest have had antibiotics and whatnot. So you're doing pretty good giving your son the one.
He ended up actually getting strep throat again, and that time I was able to keep ourselves, and that took care of it. And now he hasn't had it since.
Yay! That's the way we like it. So it sounds like the first time he had strep was pre-Joette, because with classical homeopathy, you have to repertorize and find exactly, is it right-sided, left-sided, what kind of strep throat are we dealing with? And then when he got strep throat the second time, was that with Joette's information available to you?
Yeah, so I had just met her, and so I didn't know everything about it yet, and I hadn't been through her classes and whatnot yet, and so that's why I didn't feel as comfortable. But yeah, then the second time I had been through her class, I had talked to her more, and I felt really comfortable sticking with it, and so that's what kind of pushed me along.
So really before you were hesitant with homeopathy, and Joette kind of gave you permission? Is that right?
Yeah. Definitely her classes. I loved her classes. I've done all of them. One of them, just the survivalist, I'm still working to get through. But the good gut, bad gut, the skin, the allergies. So it just really kind of opened my eyes up to even more uses for homeopathy that just made it so exciting, and also gave me more confidence to say, hey, this remedy is for this, here's what's happening, and I feel good about giving it.
I find that that's typical among people who did homeopathy before they met Joette, and then kind of after Joette, it's like their view of homeopathy broadens, because you realize with her practical approach that there's so much more this could work for.
Absolutely.
Well, I can relate to that, because my mom did raise me using a lot of homeopathic remedies. We were immigrants and didn't have health insurance right away when we moved here on my dad's student visa. And she used homeopathy, but then it's like as soon as we got health insurance, she stopped using it because she thought, oh, well, now this is better. But knowing what I know now and knowing what my mom knows now, she's like, boy, I wish I had realized how deep this stuff was, and I would have just stuck with it.
Wow,
so,
right.
Kind of a shame. Okay, so why don't you tell us some of your acute successes with homeopathy?
Some of the other ways that I've used homeopathy is when my daughter sprained her ankle. I gave her Arnica right away for the pain, and then I started her on the Ruta for the sprain, and she really felt like after no time at all, like I was almost like, doesn't your ankle hurt? She's like, no. It feels fine. And she was like in 2 days walking on it, and she's like, it doesn't hurt. But it was like purple and black and blue, but it didn't hurt.
Oh, wow. It looked bad,
it was
but
like
it felt
amazing. Great. Yeah, like it looked horrible, but it helped so fast for her. It was amazing because you could see where it was hurt, and I would press on it, and she'd be like, oh, don't touch it. But she was able to walk and do everything she needed. She went to school after only a couple days on the remedies.
Incredible. So tell our listeners what Ruta is good for. I know it's for like deep tissue sprains.
I mainly had always thought in my head, like Ruta, I knew it was for sprains and strains. So
Yes.
I guess as soon as she sprained it, it like popped in my head. I'm like, oh, that's right. I learned Ruta is for sprains and strains. So that's what kind of made me reach for that. But then I also knew like Arnica is like the thing that you give first when you first have an injury. You want to give the Arnica for kind of the shock, the trauma, and then also the pain. So I actually alternated Arnica with Ruta because Arnica helped with the pain. And then the Ruta was to heal.
I think it's really good to have these little keynotes memorized. So they're part of like your muscle memory. When something happens, you're like, oh yeah, Ruta, Arnica, done. You don't really need to overthink it, especially in acute things like this.
Right. And that's kind of where I've gone. And that's why I love Joette's stuff, because you have this issue, here's what you use. You have this issue, here's what you use. And that it just kind of sticks in my head. And so it has made it easier to select remedies when I need them. Actually, a couple weeks ago, I had bronchitis, and I did not want to go on any medications. I actually I Googled it. I was reading some stuff about Calicarb, and I started it, and it helped immediately. Like, I was having trouble breathing.
Yeah.
And I took it. I was like, oh, I can breathe again. Like, it was night and day. It helped so fast. So that was mind-blowing, because I hadn't really used it in like a severe. To me, bronchitis was getting a little more severe because I didn't want to get pneumonia or have it get worse.
Good for you. I am always amazed with homeopathy, but then when you get sick again or something bad happens, you have an accident or something and you're pretty depressed about it, right? Because you don't feel good. And then when the homeopathy works, it's like, why do I keep getting like impressed and surprised with this when I know it works? Right. But when it works, you're like, yes, it works.
I know.
This is so great. And you broke your foot as well, right?
Yes, I did. I broke my foot and actually sprained my ankle a couple of years back. And again, I used the Arnica like I did with my daughter. And then I did use the Ruta because I knew for the sprain. And again, I was just starting to learn about Joette. And so then I was reading that for the broken bone part, I was supposed to use Symphytum. So I waited a little bit because she mentions that you're not supposed to use it till you know the bone is in place because it works so quickly. Right. So I did wait about a week until the doctor said everything was healing properly. And then I went ahead and used the Symphytum as well.
Yes, because I think she says, this is kind of graphic to even think about, but if your bone is not set properly in the right position and you start this Symphytum, it will fuse together in the wrong position. And I mean, ultimately, the doctor has to re-break the bone to fix it.
Right. Like, that would not be fun. Yeah.
That would be terrible. Insult to injury for sure. So we do know homeopathy is wonderful and that we would never want to live without it. But I do want to paint a real picture. Like, has everything been easy and you just sailed through it with homeopathy, or have there been some struggles?
I can't say that homeopathy isn't like a magic bullet in our household and we're not 100% health and like these perfect human beings. I mean, we're still real life humans. We live in society. We don't eat everything perfectly. And so daughter actually has some food allergies. She's had peanut allergies since she was real little, and a couple other food allergies and just some environmental allergies. And so that's something that we're still working on, and it's kind of like a process as we go. But I love the homeopathy for like a lot of the acute things like we're talking about, like injuries and my bronchitis and things like that are coming up that I'm finding that I can reach for homeopathy and definitely not have any drugs in the house is really amazing.
Well, and I feel like when it comes to chronic issues, we know that those things are going to be slower to uproot. And sometimes it's slower even because you're finding the right protocol that matches the situation. What's really important about homeopathy is the more distance you put from that last antibiotic, especially, I guess this doesn't count for you guys, except for I guess your son who had the antibiotic. But for me, who's had lots of antibiotics, the more distance I put between me and that last round, which was years ago, the healthier I'm going to get. And so it buys you time as you figure things out.
Yeah, and that's why I love it so much. Still know we have things that we're working on, and we are going to still order out sometimes, and sometimes we'll either go to a party or go out to eat, and I've learned from Joette, the Nux vomica is great in those situations for, say, overindulgence or maybe eating poor food choices. So I do kind of keep that one in my back pocket as well.
Oh, that's good. So you find success using Nux vomica when you kind of, party, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's go back to what you do for work. You said you're a nutritionist, which I think is so interesting, and that you have started recently implementing homeopathic protocols that Joette teaches into your practice, and you like that. So tell us about that.
Yeah, you know what? I really have enjoyed using some of the protocols. Before I met Joette, I was just really kind of working more with the Weston A. Price principles and helping people to kind of change their diet so they're eating more real food. I connect people with local farmers. I teach them how to make broth and things to kind of help them health-wise. But now that I have the protocols with the homeopathy, I feel like I'm starting to give those to clients and they're noticing shifts. Sometimes the diet changes take a little longer to see the shift, but with the homeopathy, there's a few of them that I actually use quite a bit. One being Lycopodium arsenicum.
Lycopodium 200 mixed with arsenicum 200.
Right. Yep. So that's one of the Banerjee protocols that Joette teaches in her Good Gut, Bad Gut class.
Okay.
So I've used that one probably the most out of all of them because so many people come in with bloating and gas and indigestion and stomach aches and whatnot. And so that's kind of been my go-to because I see so many people with digestive complaints that I really have been using that a lot, and people seem to get relief very quickly. And then they're more apt to make more of the diet changes.
Right. Because it's like, if I'm going to spend all this time boiling bones or making fermented stuff and still feel bloated, I might as well just eat my pizza that I like and feel bloated.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So it just kind of helps because they kind of work hand in hand so that they feel some relief, but then they're also making the lifestyle changes that are necessary for ongoing health.
Right. I think Joette, her slogan used to be homeopathy, where nutrition meets homeopathy. But now she just feels like she wants to really laser focus on the homeopathy because it's such a broad subject that she's spending less time educating on the diet, especially because I feel like there's so many people like you out there and different bloggers who are educating people on diet. And so she felt like that was as needed. But you're right. I do think that it can help speed what the diet does.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it's like a missing piece that really helps accelerate the healing.
I was speaking with a Weston A. Price chapter leader. Joette is working on a project for Weston A. Price chapter leaders, a presentation. And one of the things that we got out of the meeting is that when Joette taught her Good Gut, Bad Gut course several years ago, what was it, like 4 years ago? She said that a healthy diet, like you were saying, the Weston A. Price principles of bone broth, raw milk, all that stuff, takes care of 70% of the symptoms. And what you're left with is a 30% illness. But what Joette has witnessed in her practice and what other chapter leaders are seeing is that people are kind of coming sicker and sicker. And Joette's kind of seeing the reversal where diet is getting them 30% better and they're left with 70%, which is really concerning. And so have you seen some of that? Is that a growing trend that you've kind of witnessed anecdotally with your clients?
I do feel kind of similar in that respect. And I feel like there's a lot more digestive issues coming out and autoimmune conditions and things that I just don't always feel like diet is enough. Although I do think it's huge and definitely has to be addressed, but not always enough to give people relief, really, from what they're feeling or to see healing. So that's where I think the homeopathy helps so much because I think people feel a shift.
Yes. Yeah, because it is, like you said, deflating when you've done all the work for the diet and you're not feeling better yet.
Right.
So would you be willing to share with us a few of your other favorite protocols that you've been using with your nutrition clients?
Yeah, one of the other ones is actually the Lycopodium 200 with the Plum Bomb 200 mix. So that one actually is amazing for constipation. And
Yes.
I seriously doubted it. And I was like, okay, is this even going to work? And I actually had to use it on myself because I was struggling with that, just being open and honest here. And
Sure.
so I took it, and literally, I swear it worked overnight.
Yep.
I mean, I don't want to be graphic or anything, but it was just like, okay, I am sold. This is like the remedy I'm going to start using. So I started using it with some clients too, and I have to say that they agree with me. So maybe not everybody overnight, but if they stick with it, they notice a change.
Right. So I can relate too, because the day after Thanksgiving, you know, like leading up to Thanksgiving, I was preparing food for the week of Thanksgiving. I'm snacking on stuff. And I feel like we had pretty healthy Thanksgiving, but, you know, I'm probably overindulging, and I myself got constipated. And the day after Thanksgiving, we were going to this fair where we were going to be walking around all day outside. And I took the lycoplumbum before we left. And I was like, oh, shoot, I shouldn't have done that, because I just had like, you know, and again, I don't want to be graphic, but just nice, healthy bowel movements all day. And I was like, I gotta go to the bathroom again, you guys. I'm so sorry. I was like, okay, next time I'm gonna wait until after the fair to do the protocol.
Right.
Good. Any other protocols that you think our listeners might enjoy knowing about? I mean, these are all protocols that Joette's talked about on the blog and in her courses, but it's nice to have them all in one place here on this podcast. So.
Right. Yeah, you know what? Actually, I had a client who called me. She was on vacation, and they had gone out to dinner, and she felt horrible after dinner. And we pretty much narrowed it down. It sounded like a food poisoning type thing. And so I actually gave her the arsenicum. And
okay. Do you remember what potency?
I told her, you know what? She could only get the 30.
Okay.
Because she had to get it locally at the store. So I told her to take the arsenicum 30, and I told her to take it actually every 15 minutes.
Okay, yeah.
And
so it was pretty severe.
She like couldn't move. She was in horrible pain. And she said she felt better within an hour.
Wow. Just an improvement. Wow.
Yeah, so that was one. And now I actually sometimes use that even for people if they say they've gone out to dinner and then they have a stomach ache. I've used it with a couple other people and they've had relief. Even if I don't know for sure if it's food poisoning, but if they're having issues after eating out, then I found that one has worked really well. Again, I use the Nux vomica if people go to a party or kind of overindulge or maybe drink too much. Then I've recommended that to people with success.
Interesting. And then the arsenicum for that stomach pain when they've kind of gone out, is that arsenicum 6?
You know what? I've used both. So, yeah, I've used actually arsenicum 6 for some congestion and arsenicum 30 more for the stomach pain. But I know she suggests some different ways. It's just sometimes,
I know for us, before Joette, we did like the full GAPS. We started intro to GAPS and did all the steps. And my poor kids, like they still refer to like, Mom, remember that one time we went to the park? I'm like, I don't remember. It was before we ate soup. I'm like, oh boy. I know, like it traumatized them. I know, that's all they remember is like this key time in our life when we ate a lot of soup. But anyways, as we transitioned out of the GAPS diet, my middle little boy, he was having lots of stomach pain, lots of, you know, just like, Mom, my tummy hurts. Mom, my tummy hurts. And, you know, we're drinking raw milk. We have a Jersey in the backyard. So we're eating well. We're having lots of the good foods like you're talking about, but he would still have this like nagging tummy pain. And so we did do like the Bovista protocol that you learn in the Good Gut, Bad Gut course for food intolerances. But also, in addition to that, not mixed, but we did colosynthesis
30 twice a day.
And that helped tremendously. Yeah, that was tremendously helpful for stomach pains for him. I think if you take the course, you can learn about the arsenicum for stomach pain and the colosynthesis and differentiate between the two, you know, in what situations they'd be best served. So,
yeah, for sure. Yeah, they're both great remedies.
In closing, you know, since we've been talking about diet and homeopathy, you used to be kind of extreme with your Weston A. Price principled diet. And you've kind of shifted from that. And I think homeopathy has helped you do that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that angle?
Yeah, I would say definitely with help from Joette in kind of teaching me about how much the homeopathy can help, as well as still eating some of the foods that we want to eat or that are available to us, has kind of helped me lighten up a little bit as far as how strict I am on diet. And maybe everything doesn't have to be homemade or sprouted or cooked in broth or raw every second. So I guess I've just lightened up a little bit, and yet I'm using the remedies regularly. Like I said, my daughter has some food allergies, so I am using the Bovista and some of the other food intolerance remedies that she suggests in the course. And so hopefully my goal is to be able to heal that without having to be so extreme on the diet.
Right, exactly. And I think that's the way to do it. I mean, Joette says, and this is like blasphemy for a nutritionist, but she says, you should be able to have like McDonald's. Not that you ought to, but you should be able to do
right,
that.
If you I would want that. Right.
I know, that's gross. But yes, I remember she said in the Good Gut Bad Gut course, do you remember this? Where she said, like, I had an Egg McMuffin this week. And I was just like, oh my goodness, this is like blasphemy. Yeah.
Right.
But I remember she was leaving town for an emergency with a family member, and it's nice to not have to pack a whole cooler full of specialized food and just be where your family needs you.
Yeah, and even my client who travels a lot, now she just carries the arsenicum with her. She now uses that when she has the stomach pain after eating out, and she just can't even believe it. So she's still able to eat out and yet has some relief either with that or vomica. She found kind of what works for her now. So it's pretty amazing.
So you kind of remind me of the moms with Moxie who have a lot of children, like Galen. I think she has 7 or 8 children because you have all these clients. And so you get to see the homeopathy working for so many people on a regular basis.
Right. That's interesting. Yeah, I always have such gratitude to those mothers out there who have so many, and I'm always in awe of them.
Yes, for sure. I know it. Well, Cheryl, thank you so much for letting me pick your brain on all things homeopathy and for being willing to chat with us. I think that your message is valuable, and I love the combination that you've brought in, that angle of diet with homeopathy, and I think that's wonderful. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you having me.
Are you or someone you know a mom with Moxie? Well, we're on the hunt for you. And of course, we don't want to hear just from moms, but from anyone who uses and loves homeopathy. Reach out to my podcast team and let us know why you're a mom with Moxie. For more information, contact podcast@joettecalabrese.com.